August 15, 1940. Over the skies of northern France. The sun glinted off the metallic wings of Spitfires cutting through the thin morning air. Below, fields and villages passed in a blur, unaware of the deadly dance above. One lone RAF pilot, Flight Lieutenant James "Jimmy" Carter, gripped the control column of his aircraft, eyes scanning the horizon. Dozens of Messerschmitt Bf 109s emerged from the clouds, engines screaming, slicing through the calm like predators. Each twist, each barrel roll, demanded precision, nerve, and instinct honed through months of relentless training and combat. Carter's heart beat in sync with the rhythm of his Spitfire, the machine a natural extension of his body. Around him, the sky erupted in smoke trails, tracer bullets, and the occasional roar of an exploding enemy fighter. Despite being outnumbered, Carter's maneuvers were deliberate, almost poetic, turning desperation into advantage. Every second carried the weight of life and death, not just for him, but for the pilots he represented, the airspace they defended, and the fragile hope of a nation. Above the French countryside, a solitary hero faced a storm, and the outcome of his audacious fight would echo far beyond the clouds. By mid-1940, Europe had already been transformed by the relentless momentum of the German war machine. France, once a fortress of alliances and armies, had crumbled under the Blitzkrieg's speed and precision. The Wehrmacht's panzer divisions had sliced through defensive lines, while Luftwaffe bombers dominated the skies, softening towns, railways, and airfields for occupation. Britain, though insulated by the Channel, faced the stark reality that the next phase of the conflict would be fought in the air. The Royal Air Force had been rebuilding, modernizing its squadrons with Spitfires and Hurricanes, but numbers were limited, and every pilot became a critical asset. In this precarious balance, individual skill could tip the scale, especially in encounters over occupied territories. Flight Lieutenant James Carter was one of these pilots. He had joined the RAF in 1937, part of a new generation trained to operate cutting-edge aircraft and integrate emerging air tactics. By the summer of 1940, he had already flown multiple sorties over France, escorting bombers and engaging enemy reconnaissance planes. His squadron, stationed at AF Biggin Hill, had learned that French skies demanded relentless vigilance. One misjudged maneuver could be fatal. Every dogfight was a lesson in precision, psychology, and instinct. The Luftwaffe, confident in its superiority, had underestimated the resolve and ingenuity of individual IAF pilots. German fighter wings often operated in large formations, expecting to overwhelm any opposition with coordinated attacks. Yet, the fast, nimble Spitfires, combined with experienced pilots, proved surprisingly resilient. The RAF strategy relied not on sheer numbers, but on tactical advantage, surprise, maneuverability, and the ability to exploit weaknesses in enemy formations. This approach was dangerous, but for pilots like Carter, it offered the chance to turn the tables. As August progressed, reconnaissance reports signaled increased Luftwaffe activity near Calais and northern France. Carter and his fellow pilots prepared for continuous sorties. Each mission involved detailed planning. Flight paths were calculated, fuel reserves monitored, and enemy airfield positions memorized. The intelligence officers highlighted patterns in Luftwaffe patrols, noting the most aggressive wings and their preferred engagement altitudes. Such data, though crucial, could only guide the pilot. The reality of combat demanded instant decisions in fractions of a second. Carter's preparation went beyond maps and reports. Mental readiness, situational awareness, and trust in his aircraft were equally critical. The Spitfire's Merlin engine could respond in milliseconds, its airframe allowed sharp rolls and dives, but every maneuver required perfect timing. Pilots often described this connection as a conversation between human and machine, each movement deliberate, each response immediate. Training and instinct merged into instinctive action, creating a synergy that could outmatch even superior numbers. The stakes extended beyond the tactical. Every engagement had strategic consequences. German air dominance over France threatened the Channel ports, potentially paving the way for an invasion of Britain. Successful RAF missions could disrupt Luftwaffe patrols, protect vital convoys, and maintain morale on the home front. Each pilot's performance resonated through the wider theater of war, where a single loss could compromise an entire operation. In these circumstances, Carter's skill, decision-making, and courage were more than personal attributes, they were components of national defense. By mid-August, the environment was tense. Weather reports and intelligence briefings indicated a significant Luftwaffe sortie over northern France on August 15. Carter's squadron prepared for intercepts, fully aware that the skies would be crowded, chaotic, and unforgiving. Each aircraft's instruments, fuel lines, and weapons systems underwent meticulous checks. Pilots reviewed potential engagement scenarios, emphasizing both aggressive action and survival. Even a slight miscalculation, engine failure, misjudged trajectory, or poor timing, could end in catastrophe. Carter understood that individual initiative would be critical. While IAF doctrine emphasized coordinated squadron tactics, there were moments when one pilot had to act decisively, exploiting enemy missteps in real time. The coming mission would demand exactly that. It was the kind of encounter that would test not only technical skill but courage under pressure, a single man against overwhelming opposition. By August 15, 1940, the skies over northern France had become a deadly theater. The Luftwaffe, emboldened by rapid victories across Europe, had increased its aerial reconnaissance and fighter patrols near the Channel coast. German intelligence sought to identify weak points in RAF coverage, testing responses to both small-scale and larger incursions. Each sortie brought the potential for intense encounters, and pilots on both sides were acutely aware that a single misstep could be fatal. Carter's squadron received orders early in the morning. Reports indicated a substantial enemy formation, potentially a mix of Bf-109s and Bf-110s, had been sighted near Calais, heading south toward key supply routes. The mission was clear: intercept, engage, and disrupt the enemy while minimizing losses. Detailed pre-flight briefings highlighted the enemy's expected approach altitude, formation patterns, and armament. Yet, the information, however precise, could not account for every variable in combat. Clouds of unpredictability hovered over every engagement, from sudden maneuvers to engine failures and the chaos of aerial combat. In preparation, each pilot reviewed tactics for engaging superior numbers. The RAF relied on flexibility, agility, and situational awareness. Spitfires could outturn the heavier Messerschmitts, and coordinated wingmen maneuvers allowed smaller groups to punch above their weight. Still, the reality was sobering. A single pilot separated from formation risked isolation and annihilation. Carter knew that survival demanded both courage and calculation. He also understood the value of deception, using the Spitfire's speed and agility to bait or confuse enemy pilots. On the ground, the atmosphere at RAF bases was tense but disciplined. Mechanics checked every system: fuel pumps, guns, oil pressure, and radio communications. Intelligence officers verified reports of enemy strength and potential flight paths. Commanders emphasized that while squadron tactics were critical, individual initiative could determine the outcome. Every pilot was trained to anticipate enemy behavior, exploiting hesitation, misjudgment, or overconfidence. Carter, already familiar with Luftwaffe tendencies, would need to apply all of these lessons in real time. The French countryside below added a layer of complexity. Villages, rivers, and roads became both reference points and hazards. Pilots had to navigate precisely, avoiding anti-aircraft fire while maintaining tactical positions. Every turn or dive had implications: miscalculate altitude or speed, and a collision or ground impact became possible. Yet, the landscape also offered advantages for those who knew how to exploit it: brief cover behind clouds, surprise approaches, and vantage points for observing enemy movements. Carter's experience over similar terrain gave him an edge, though nothing could fully eliminate the inherent danger of facing dozens of enemy fighters. By late morning, the Luftwaffe formation had been confirmed. Observers reported multiple waves approaching, a coordinated effort to dominate the airspace and neutralize IAF responses. Carter's squadron scrambled, engines roaring, wheels lifting off the tarmac. The airfield became a controlled chaos. Pilots braced for intense maneuvers, mechanics waved final checks, and command shouted confirmations over the din of engines. For Carter, the moment was not theoretical, this was combat in its purest, most immediate form. Every calculation, every instinct, every second counted. As they ascended, Carter's thoughts focused on survival and effectiveness. Outnumbered, the RAF's mission demanded precision and creativity. Any advantage gained could shift the engagement, even against overwhelming odds. His mind reviewed training drills, enemy behavior patterns, and past sorties. The Luftwaffe pilots, confident from prior successes, were expected to operate in strict formations, yet rigidity often proved fatal against adaptive adversaries. Carter would need to combine skill, timing, and psychological insight to navigate the storm awaiting him. This mission exemplified the broader stakes of the war. Each sortie over France had ripple effects beyond the immediate engagement. Enemy morale, civilian safety, and the integrity of supply routes hung in the balance. Success could delay German dominance, embolden Allied forces, and reinforce the RAF's resilience. Failure could mean loss of air superiority, increased vulnerability for ground forces, and psychological damage to both pilots and the home front. For Flight Lieutenant Carter, the upcoming encounter would test every aspect of his training, experience, and courage, setting the stage for an extraordinary confrontation that would be remembered for its daring and tactical brilliance. The psychological strain on an RAF pilot in 1940 was immense. Flight Lieutenant Carter, like his comrades, faced the constant tension of life-and-death decisions executed at hundreds of miles per hour. Fear was ever present, yet it was disciplined and channeled into focus. Pilots described the feeling as controlled chaos, a combination of adrenaline, anticipation, and unwavering concentration. Every dogfight demanded rapid judgment, to dive, climb, bank, or break formation. A single hesitation could be fatal. Carter's success relied not only on his physical skill but on his ability to remain calm under pressure. He had to anticipate enemy reactions while coordinating with wingmen, all while navigating unpredictable weather and terrain. Human resilience, emotional control, and instinctive reactions became as critical as technical proficiency. The courage to confront overwhelming numbers, maintain composure, and execute complex maneuvers under extreme stress exemplified the uniquely human aspect of aerial combat, a dance between life, death, and duty that no instrument or weapon could replicate. Tactics were central to the RAF's ability to counteract superior German numbers. Spitfires, though fewer in quantity, offered advantages in agility and acceleration, allowing pilots to engage and disengage strategically. Carter's squadron employed formations designed to maximize defensive and offensive coverage while protecting vulnerable wingmen. The Finger Four formation, later widely adopted, allowed flexible positioning, mutual support, and rapid adaptation during engagements. Pilots learned to use altitude as leverage, diving to gain speed and climbing to force an opponent into a disadvantageous position. Carter often exploited the Luftwaffe's rigid formation flying. A tightly grouped enemy could be disrupted by sudden, unpredictable maneuvers, forcing errors and opening firing opportunities. Tactical mastery involved understanding not just one's own aircraft, but the capabilities, limitations, and behavioral patterns of the enemy. In a single engagement, tactical foresight, split-second adaptation, and precise execution determined whether a pilot would survive or be lost. The Spitfire itself was a technological marvel, embodying the cutting edge of British aeronautical engineering. Its Merlin engine provided exceptional speed and climb performance, while the airframe's design allowed rapid, precise rolls and turns. Armament, though modest, 8.303 Browning machine guns, was highly effective when combined with the Spitfire's maneuverability. Carter's survival depended on leveraging these advantages against the heavier, less agile Bf-109s. Conversely, the Luftwaffe fighters excelled in climb rate and firepower, illustrating that technology alone did not guarantee victory. Knowledge of both one's own aircraft and that of the enemy was crucial. Pilots had to exploit mechanical strengths and mitigate weaknesses, often improvising tactics mid-air. Maintenance crews also played a critical role. Flawless preparation ensured that every system, engine, guns, fuel lines, and instruments, functioned under the extreme stresses of combat. Technological mastery was inseparable from human skill. Without Carter's instinct and experience, the Spitfire's potential remained unrealized. Leadership in the RAF extended beyond rank or title. It was measured by presence, decision-making, and the ability to inspire confidence under extreme stress. Squadron leaders coordinated missions, briefed pilots, and monitored engagement strategies, but on the battlefield, individual initiative became decisive. Carter, though not the squadron commander, demonstrated a form of leadership through example. His precise maneuvers, calculated risks, and ability to maintain composure under fire influenced the morale of wingmen and reinforced the culture of disciplined courage. Leadership also involved mentoring less experienced pilots, offering guidance mid-mission, and anticipating contingencies. In dogfights, where outcomes hinged on split-second decisions, the model set by a single skilled pilot could have disproportionate effects. Carter's capacity to adapt, inspire, and take calculated action elevated him from merely a participant to a pivotal figure within his squadron's operational effectiveness. Understanding the Luftwaffe was as important as mastering one's own aircraft. German fighter pilots, trained rigorously under the Luftwaffe structured programs, were highly competent, disciplined, and accustomed to coordinated mass attacks. Their strengths included high-speed diving attacks, tight formations, and superior firepower. Yet, these same strengths carried predictable patterns. Carter's awareness of the enemy's tactics, anticipating turns, feints, and attack angles, allowed him to exploit gaps in coordination. The Luftwaffe's confidence often bordered on overconfidence, leading to moments of vulnerability when formations became too rigid or when individual pilots broke protocol. Studying enemy behavior, patterns, and decision-making processes was essential for survival and success. Every engagement was not just a clash of machines, but a confrontation of skill, anticipation, and psychology, where understanding the adversary's mindset could turn the tide in favor of the fewer but more agile defenders. The moral dimension of combat was rarely spoken of openly, yet it permeated every sortie. Carter and his fellow pilots carried the responsibility of protecting not only their own lives but also civilians, infrastructure, and the broader strategic objectives of their nation. Decisions made in split seconds, whether to pursue, evade, or fire, had profound ethical implications. Witnessing the destruction wrought by both bombs and bullets created a tension between duty and conscience. Pilots had to reconcile the necessity of lethal action with their personal sense of humanity. Carter's actions exemplified this balance. Every maneuver and engagement was calculated not merely for survival but to achieve maximum effect with minimal unnecessary risk. Moral awareness was not abstract. It shaped strategy, influenced behavior, and informed the mental resilience needed to operate effectively under extreme conditions. Each pilot's courage carried the weight of both strategic necessity and ethical responsibility. August 15, 1940, 10:45 a.m. The skies over northern France erupted in motion. Carter, leading his section of 3 Spitfires, spotted the first wave of Bf 109s crossing the horizon near Calais. Engines roared, wings cut through the air, and tracer fire began to streak across the sky like silver lightning. Outnumbered nearly 10-1, Carter immediately calculated the angles of approach, dive paths, and potential escape routes. The Luftwaffe formation, confident and tightly grouped, underestimated the rapid precision of the RAF pilots. Carter's instincts, honed over countless sorties, became the decisive factor. The first attack came from the left. A Messerschmitt swooped down in a high-speed dive, guns blazing. Carter banked sharply, pulling the Spitfire into a roll that threw the enemy off trajectory. He returned fire in a controlled burst, striking the wing root of the Bf 109. Smoke trailed as the German aircraft veered off, a stark reminder that every maneuver was life or death. Around him, the remaining Spitfires executed coordinated turns, cutting off attackers and forcing the Luftwaffe pilots into defensive positions. Carter's decisions were instantaneous, yet deliberate, combining speed, precision, and calculated aggression. Altitude became both a weapon and a shield. Carter climbed above the formation, using height to dictate engagements, while enemy pilots were forced into lower, less advantageous positions. In these moments, tactical acumen outweighed numerical superiority. The Luftwaffe attempted coordinated group attacks, but Carter exploited gaps between the German fighters. Sharp dives, sudden rolls, and deceptive maneuvers created confusion, breaking formation discipline. Each maneuver carried risk. A single miscalculation could leave him vulnerable to multiple attackers. Yet Carter's mastery of his aircraft, coupled with his understanding of enemy behavior, allowed him to turn threat into opportunity. Wingmen followed his lead, trusting Carter's timing and judgment. Communication was silent but precise, a choreography of angles, spacing, and positioning. As one Bf-109 attempted a head-on approach, Carter spiraled into a steep turn, allowing the pursuing fighter to overshoot. Another Spitfire swept in, forcing the German into evasive maneuvers and exposing it to concentrated fire. In less than 2 minutes, Carter had effectively disrupted multiple attack vectors, reducing the tactical advantage of the overwhelming enemy numbers. Each engagement was a sequence of calculated risks, improvisation, and precise execution, turning chaos into orchestrated action. Smoke and tracer fire filled the sky, marking hits and near misses. The air vibrated with the sound of engines at maximum output, the intermittent cracks of gunfire, and the faint shouts of pilots over radios. Carter's senses operated on instinct. He watched enemy movement, predicted trajectories, and adjusted speed and direction with split-second timing. One misjudged turn could result in collision or gunfire, yet he maneuvered with a calm that belied the chaos surrounding him. Each victory, each narrowly avoided strike, heightened tension, yet also reinforced his resolve. The Luftwaffe adapted, attempting flanking maneuvers and coordinated dives. Carter anticipated each adjustment, exploiting overconfidence and rigid patterns. His Spitfire responded instantly, climbing, rolling, and diving with precision. The narrow French skies limited escape routes, yet Carter's familiarity with terrain allowed him to position strategically, forcing enemy fighters into disadvantageous angles. Every engagement, every evasive action, emphasized that skill and awareness could outweigh sheer numerical superiority. As the engagement continued, it became clear that Carter's audacity and tactical mastery were shaping the battle. Enemy pilots were forced into defensive reactions, breaking formation and creating exploitable gaps. Wingmen, inspired by his lead, executed precise maneuvers, collectively amplifying the effect of individual skill. The fight was far from over, but the momentum was shifting. Carter had turned what could have been a rout into a contest defined by strategy, discipline, and the extraordinary capability of a single, determined pilot. The battle raged over the French countryside, engines screaming and tracers carving deadly paths through the sky. Carter, now separated slightly from his wingmen, faced a concentrated attack by 3 Bf-109s. The enemy pilots, confident and aggressive, executed a pincer maneuver, aiming to overwhelm him from multiple angles. Carter's mind raced, calculating every turn, every dive, every burst of fire. He was acutely aware that a single error meant destruction. He initiated a sharp vertical climb, forcing the pursuing fighters to overshoot. At the apex, he rolled and dived, aligning his sights on the closest attacker. His burst found its mark, hitting the fuselage and sending the Messerschmitt spinning out of control. Another enemy fighter attempted to close from below, but Carter's Spitfire responded with a sudden, low-altitude dive, allowing him to slip past unseen for a moment. Exploiting terrain and timing, he evaded 2 more attackers in rapid succession, each maneuver a delicate blend of skill, instinct, and mechanical precision. Meanwhile, the remaining Spitfires engaged in coordinated counterattacks, distracting enemy wings and creating opportunities for Carter to reposition. The Luftwaffe formation, now fragmented and disoriented, struggled to maintain cohesion. Tracer lines crisscrossed the sky as dogfights erupted in small, deadly clusters. Carter's leadership instinct, though informal in this moment, guided his squadron. Wingmen followed his movements instinctively, trusting his tactical judgment. Every evasive roll, every climb and dive, was calculated not only for survival but to exploit enemy weaknesses. Amid the chaos, Carter identified a moment of opportunity. A Bf-109, separated from the rest, was attempting a steep climb to rejoin its formation. Carter executed a high-speed dive from above, closing distance rapidly. His guns tore through the enemy's fuselage, forcing the pilot to abandon the aircraft. The Luftwaffe's momentum faltered. Their attacks became reactive, hesitant, and fragmented. What had begun as a seemingly insurmountable numerical advantage now tilted toward the RAF through calculated skill and audacity. The engagement lasted less than 20 minutes but left a lasting impression on all involved. Carter had survived multiple concentrated attacks, disrupted enemy cohesion, and inflicted decisive losses. His understanding of the aircraft, the enemy, and the dynamics of aerial combat had been tested under extreme conditions and proven superior. Yet victory came at a cost. Scattered debris, damaged Spitfires, and exhausted pilots marked the aftermath of the intense encounter. Every maneuver, every calculated risk, had been a gamble with survival on the line. As Carter regrouped with his wingmen, assessing damage and ensuring all pilots were accounted for, the wider implications became clear. The Luftwaffe, expecting an easy domination of French airspace, had been forced into a defensive posture. The RAF, though outnumbered, had demonstrated that tactical brilliance, individual skill, and disciplined execution could neutralize superior numbers. Carter's actions were not heroic for spectacle. They were precise, methodical, and grounded in training and instinct. The success of this engagement exemplified the critical role of human judgment, adaptability, and courage in warfare. The skies gradually cleared as surviving aircraft returned to base. Carter's mind remained alert, already analyzing each maneuver, each decision, for lessons learned. Reports would later detail the enemy losses, the near misses, and the tactical innovations applied during the battle. Strategically, this engagement signaled that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the RAF could impose constraints on the Luftwaffe, disrupt operations, and maintain critical air superiority over contested regions. Carter's experience would become a model for tactical training, illustrating the convergence of human skill, leadership, and technology in a crucible of war. The skies over northern France had cleared, leaving behind a battlefield marked not by terrain, but by the scars of aerial combat. Flight Lieutenant Carter and his squadron returned to their base, aircraft bearing the evidence of near misses and minor damage. Reports were immediately compiled. 2 Bf-109s confirmed destroyed, 1 damaged beyond repair, and enemy pilots accounted for. Remarkably, all IAF pilots returned safely, a testament to precise tactics, disciplined flying, and Carter's leadership under fire. Operational debriefs emphasized the unusual nature of the engagement. Official IAF reports highlighted the effectiveness of small, agile formations when commanded by experienced pilots capable of exploiting enemy rigidity. Observers noted that Carter's maneuvers had disrupted the Luftwaffe's attack sequence, causing confusion that multiplied the effect of each defensive action. Analysts would later study his engagement as a textbook example of skill overcoming numerical disadvantage. The human factor, decision-making, timing, and psychological awareness, was repeatedly underscored in evaluations. Casualties were minimal for the IAF, but the impact on the Luftwaffe was significant. The loss of aircraft and experienced pilots forced operational adjustments. German commanders were compelled to reconsider patrol patterns and engagement strategies over northern France. Intelligence gathered from this encounter revealed vulnerabilities in formation tactics and highlighted the effectiveness of IAF flexibility, coordination, and terrain exploitation. These findings would influence subsequent sorties, forcing a more cautious approach by the Luftwaffe in areas where RAF presence was strong. Beyond numbers and reports, the engagement had a profound psychological effect. Carter's squadron, having faced overwhelming odds and prevailed, gained confidence in their training, aircraft, and own abilities. The realization that disciplined skill could counter superior forces reinforced morale across units. Conversely, Luftwaffe pilots experienced a sobering awareness that numerical advantage did not guarantee dominance. The lesson resonated beyond the immediate battle. Aerial warfare demanded continuous adaptation, vigilance, and respect for the capabilities of individual adversaries. The RAF's operational efficiency was also reinforced by maintenance and support crews. Aircraft that had sustained minor damage were rapidly repaired, refueled, and rearmed. Ground crews documented every mechanical issue encountered during the engagement, ensuring lessons were applied to future sorties. This seamless integration of human skill, mechanical preparation, and operational oversight exemplified the RAF's resilience under pressure. Carter's experience demonstrated that victory depended not only on aerial tactics but also on the collective effort behind each mission. The engagement over northern France had ripple effects that extended far beyond the immediate battlefield. Strategically, the Luftwaffe was forced to reconsider its assumptions of air superiority. German commanders recognized that small, well-trained RAF units could disrupt even large formations, compelling a reassessment of patrol strategies, flight altitudes, and engagement timing. The battle highlighted the limitations of numerical dominance when opposed by agile tactics, disciplined pilots, and intimate knowledge of both aircraft and terrain. Reports circulated through German command, emphasizing the need for coordination improvements and more adaptive response techniques. For the RAF, the successful defense strengthened confidence and validated operational doctrine. Pilots and squadron leaders studied Carter's maneuvers closely, incorporating lessons into training and tactical planning. Intelligence analysts noted that such engagements demonstrated the critical role of human judgment, decisiveness, and improvisation. Carter's ability to anticipate enemy moves, exploit errors, and maintain cohesion under pressure became a case study in effective leadership at the tactical level. The squadron's collective performance reinforced morale, showing that courage, skill, and precise execution could mitigate overwhelming odds. The psychological impact extended to both sides. Carter's squadron returned with heightened confidence, understanding that disciplined execution could overcome the intimidation of larger enemy formations. Conversely, Luftwaffe pilots faced an unexpected lesson in vulnerability. Reports from German air units described confusion, disorientation, and surprise at the efficiency of RAF defensive tactics. Such experiences contributed to a gradual recognition that British pilots were not merely defenders, but formidable adversaries capable of shaping the outcome of engagements through skill and ingenuity. Operationally, the engagement prompted adjustments in RAF and Luftwaffe strategies. The RAF emphasized flexible formations, rapid adaptation to changing circumstances, and the value of individual initiative. Wingmen were trained to read not only their own aircraft but the behavior of enemy pilots, anticipating movements and maintaining situational awareness. German forces, meanwhile, increased focus on coordination, maintaining tighter control over formations, and improving communication between squadrons to prevent similar disruptions. These adaptations underscored a fundamental truth of aerial warfare: technology alone could not secure victory. Human skill, judgment, and adaptability were decisive factors. Finally, the broader strategic consequences became apparent. By successfully contesting airspace over northern France, the RAF delayed Luftwaffe dominance in the region, protecting critical supply lines, transport routes, and potential staging areas for future operations. Each successful sortie reinforced British air resilience and demonstrated that determined, skilled pilots could impose constraints on the enemy, even in contested skies. Carter's actions, while individual in execution, contributed directly to this larger strategic outcome, exemplifying the impact of singular skill within the broader machinery of war. The battle over northern France was more than a test of aircraft or strategy, it was a testament to the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. Flight Lieutenant Carter's actions demonstrated how skill, composure, and courage could transform a desperate situation into a decisive advantage. In the span of minutes, the outcome of a seemingly impossible engagement hinged not on numbers or firepower alone, but on instinct, preparation, and leadership. This encounter also highlighted the interplay between technology and humanity. The Spitfire, a marvel of engineering, was only as effective as the pilot guiding it. Carter's understanding of his aircraft, combined with his knowledge of enemy tactics and the nuances of aerial combat, turned machine into an extension of his own skill. Each maneuver reflected not only training but the deep trust between man and machine, a bond that could mean the difference between life and death. Beyond tactics and technology, the moral dimension of combat was ever present. Every choice, every burst of fire, carried consequences for both combatants and the larger war effort. Carter's discipline and calculated judgment under pressure exemplified the ethical responsibility inherent in wielding such power. Courage was not recklessness, it was the careful application of skill in service of duty, an enduring principle that defined the best of those who fought in the skies. Historically, this engagement served as a microcosm of the broader conflict, the tension between quantity and quality, between mechanized power and human ingenuity. It reinforced that even in an era of rapidly advancing technology, the outcome of war remained profoundly shaped by individuals who could think, act, and adapt under pressure. The legacy of Carter's encounter endures, reminding us that the courage and skill of a single pilot could resonate far beyond the clouds, influencing strategy, morale, and the very course of history. In reflecting on this event, one sees not only the drama of combat, but the enduring truth of human capability, the ability to face overwhelming challenges with precision, determination, and unwavering resolve. It is a story of skill meeting opportunity, of instinct guided by experience, and of courage defined not by numbers, but by the audacity to act when the stakes are highest.